Hey guys, what's up? Philip here. Today, as you can see, we're still in the Big Apple. It's cold, it's wet, it's rainy, and I was thinking about staying in today, but then I realized I have to tell you guys about this. This is extremely pressing, it can't wait, and I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't talk about this. So what am I gonna talk about? You might be clamoring to know. Well, I'm gonna tell you about the importance of cross training. Specifically, I wanted to talk about doing exercises that are in opposition to the exercises that you're doing for your main sport or endeavor. I haven't really seen a lot of videos on the importance of cross training, at least on a lot of the main fitness YouTube community channels, and honestly I just can't believe that it hasn't extensively been covered, because this is something that's extremely important. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So why is cross training so important? Well, in this video I'm going to boil it down into 3 points. First is that it's beneficial for your health immensely. Second is that it improves your longevity as an athlete / prevents injuries. And then third, it improves your overall athleticism and allows you to be athletic. So first point, health. How does cross training improve your health? Well, I don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty details of how cardiovascular training and strength training improve your health. I think that could be a video or 2 videos, honestly, that can stand alone on their own. So I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds, but I think we can all agree that cardiovascular training and strength training are extremely beneficial, especially when it comes to some of the major diseases in developed countries, whether it be heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. These are things that exercise in general improves. So we know that doing both types of training, strength and endurance work, will improve these more than just doing one or the other. So for lifters especially, why you would want to incorporate endurance training or cardiovascular work into your regimen is because strength training on its own can come with some negative factors. If you've been strength training for a long time and haven't been incorporating any other things, you might be able to relate to the fact that you've gained a good amount of weight, 30, 40, maybe 50 pounds even, you're eating more, and to be honest, you might not have the cleanest diet per se. So cardio can obviously help you burn more calories, keep you at a lower body fat, and help you stay lighter than you otherwise would be. Now, you want to essentially just be as light as you possibly can for your frame so that your heart doesn't have to work as hard. The heavier you are, the more blood that your heart has to pump to the rest of your body, whether that be fat or muscle tissue, and so your body is going to strain more, equating to higher blood pressure or a higher resting heart rate. Both of these factors, blood pressure and resting heart rate, are very large indicators for heart disease in the future. So when you can lower your blood pressure and your heart rate through endurance work or cardiovascular activity, you're not going to predispose yourself to any of the possible negatives that having this extra body weight could have that you get from lifting. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to endurance training, people who only endurance training could benefit greatly from strength training. Strength training builds extra muscle tissue, and muscle tissue is highly insulinogenic, so this decreases your risk of type 2 diabetes. Resistance training or weight-bearing exercise also improves your bone density and bone mineralization, so you're not going to be at risk or at as high of a risk for osteoporosis as if you didn't weight train. You're also going to have a lower body fat, because muscle tissue is inherently very metabolically taxing and burns a lot of calories. So at rest, you're going to be using more calories than you otherwise would, and you can maintain a lower body fat. So it's very important for your health that you cross train. Moving on, we're going to talk about the benefits of cross training in terms of longevity as an athlete and injury prevention. So the benefits of strength training and resistance training can be very apparent. Weight-bearing exercises improves your bone mineralization or bone density, so it's going to be harder to break a bone. Also, it has been shown in some studies to improve your tendon strength, so it'll be harder to tear a tendon or a ligament doing an outdoor activity. As long as you have good form in the gym, you're not going to be breaking down your tendons and ligaments, but that's a very big if, so you need to make sure that you're training appropriately or correctly. In addition to that, weight training also improves or increases the number of type 2 muscle fibers you have, which are your fast twitch fibers. So if you fall or you trip over something, your body will be much faster in actually correcting that movement or correcting yourself to get into a good posture if you have more type 2 muscle fibers. If your knee gets put out of place while you're playing soccer, your type 2 muscle fibers can contract and compensate a lot better than, say, some slower twitch fibers that may not be able to respond as quickly. So weight training is going to be very beneficial for these reasons, but in my experience, if you're only resistance training, you can actually become very susceptible to injury by your kind of lack of coordination in other areas. You're very good in certain planes of motion and certain movement patterns. You've done 10,000 squats in your life, but when you have to move laterally per se, you're gonna look very awkward and clunky. If you see a bodybuilder try to play basketball, or somebody who's just very muscly but clearly doesn't do anything outside of workout, you can kind of tell they just look very awkward. They're just not very useful in any other endeavor. And that's not because strength training or weight training is necessarily bad for your coordination, it's because they literally don't do anything else. And so by that same token, endurance training is very beneficial because you're working in several different planes of motion. And so it's very beneficial to use your body in ways that you otherwise wouldn't. And something that I have personally found is that I had a lot of nagging little pains and aches that when I was just lifting were kind of part of my training. But as I started running, they all went away, and I feel better and more athletic and injury-free than I ever have. So finally, I wanted to talk about why cross-training is fundamental and essential for being athletic. I definitely think that the noun athlete and the adjective athletic have two different meanings at this point. An athlete can be anybody who trains or competes in one specific sport, but you don't necessarily have to be athletic. In order to be athletic, you have to be fit all around. I just can't really fathom, or I can't seem to grasp or call somebody athletic if they're not able to run 3 miles without stopping at a reasonable pace or deadlift any kind of reasonable amount. It just, in my head, I can't call them athletic. Even the best of the best athletes who are extremely specialized in their sport, if you're just too weak or not endurant enough, if you're a professional power lifter who squats 1,000 pounds but you also weigh 350 pounds and you're 40% body fat, like, I just can't call you athletic. I'm sorry, but that's maybe too hot of a take. So in my eyes, in order to be athletic, you need to have what's known as a high general work capacity. There are two kinds of work capacities that we think of in the sports science world: general and specific. General work capacity is the ability to do work, in this case it would be like exercise, in any given modality, whether it be cardiovascularly based, strength based, or power based, or kind of in the middle where it's lactate threshold tolerance based. This would be something like a CrossFitter. CrossFitters work to have extremely high general work capacity and not be too specific in any modality, because otherwise they are sacrificing their fitness in other areas. Somebody who has really high specific work capacity could be like a power lifter who's very good at 1 rep maxes but couldn't run a mile if they had to save their life. Now, the benefits of having a high general work capacity, or cross training for that matter, would be that you increase your durability in all settings. You're going to be more functional. If your family wants to go on a hike, you'll be able to actually do that. Or if you want to keep up in the gym with your friends, or you want to go wrestle for some reason, then you're also going to be able to do that. So you'll be functional in all realms and durable. You're also going to be less injury prone, which is something that I talked about in my earlier point. But past the durability benefits, you'll also have better substrate utilization, meaning that at lower heart rates, your body will be able to use fat much more effectively and efficiently. And at higher heart rates, you'll be able to metabolize glycogen and glucose much more efficiently and effectively. In addition to that, you're also going to have more vasculature both on the heart and your active tissues everywhere, so that lactic acid won't accumulate as quickly throughout your body, and so you can sustain higher intensity exercise for a longer period of time. Your cardiac output also increases, meaning that every time your heart pumps, you'll be able to pump more blood to the rest of your body. And yeah, there's probably a host of different things that I'm not mentioning, but these are just some off the top of my head that I'm thinking about. So getting to the final point, how do you effectively cross-train then? I've convinced you, you have to cross-train now, you know it's the right thing to do, but how do you implement it? Well, cross training is meant to be the polar opposite of what your sport or your competitive endeavor is. So if you're a power lifter or somebody who really focuses on 1 rep max strength or power, then you would want to do more lower intensity steady state exercise. So that would work out to something like endurance work, where you go on a jog, on a bike ride, on a hike, something of that nature to get your heart rate up, but not to fatigue yourself in any serious capacity. For an endurance runner or somebody who works in an endurance capacity, that would mean getting in the gym and working on your power output, your strength, and your muscular endurance. Now, I've seen a lot of people go wrong in terms of misconstruing what cross training is, especially in the strength world. People in the strength world talk about the importance of general physical preparedness, also known as GPP, which is essentially synonymous with cross training, but they get it completely wrong when they do it because they hate cardio. They're A, either too lazy to do it, or B, they think it kills your gains, which is kind of ridiculous, and I'll make a video on it later. But many times when these people do GPP or their form of cross training, they're dragging sleds, flipping tires, doing HIIT training or high intensity interval training. And the problem with that is that you're actually fatiguing the same muscles that you're gonna be using when you're trying to powerlift. So instead, when you're doing low intensity steady state training, you're gonna be employing more of your type 1 slow twitch muscle fibers. And then when you're doing high intensity interval training or tire flips or sled drags, you're gonna be using your type 2 fibers more. And when you're in the gym, that's pretty much exclusively type 2 fiber. So you're really not getting the same cardiovascular benefits by doing this incorrect form of GPP and being too lazy to do cardio, but you're also hindering your performance in the gym. And that's why I think a lot of people say that cardio kills your gains, because they're not actually doing cardio. I think as a power lifter or an Olympic lifter, you need to do some low intensity steady state cardio. Interval training will interfere with your lifting, and that's why people say cardio hurts your gains. So real quick, in conclusion, if you want to be an athlete or you want to be athletic, then you need to improve your general work capacity through cross training. If you guys found this video helpful or informative, or you just like the way I look, like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah! That was legitness.
Yeah, it was, huh?